So, as most of you know, we are approaching the new year on the Hebrew calendar, um, and this first month of the new year is called Abib, and within the first month is Passover. So, on the 14th day of Abib is Pesach, Passover. But before we go into that, I want to share with you how did we uh, get to the calendar that we're using right now and some of the differences between the Hebrew calendar and the calendar that we use. So, so here I've just have some listed some different things that we'll talk about. First one, why should we care about Yah's calendar? Um, because a lot of times people will hear someone teach on this subject, and I believe it just goes in one ear and out the other, because after they hear it, there's really no response. It's like, okay, now I know this is the proper day, or this is when the appointed time is that we're supposed to be keeping or observing or paying attention to. But it just they learn whatever they learn, and then that's it. There's no actual practical application. So we want to talk about why should we even care. Next, we're going to look at how we have transitioned as people of Israel from the Gregorian calendar to the from the Hebrew calendar to the Gregorian calendar. Sorry, let me go back. Okay. The next, we want to look at what is time. Well, actually, none of this is in any order. I don't know what order we're going to talk about this. We're just going to be led by the Spirit, but hopefully we can look at what is time as well. Then we're going to look at how is a year calculated on the Gregorian calendar, and we're going to look at how many hours are in a day. These are just some of the questions that I had, and so as I was wondering about these different things, I figured, well, maybe you all might be interested in this too. But first, we all know about January, February, March, April, all the way to December, because that's what we follow. No need to explain this. We know there's 365 days in a year. But the first thing I want to do is I want us to look at the various meanings of the days of the week, and then the various meanings of the month of the year. So, for example, we know the first day of the week is Sunday. So I found a nice little article that helps us understand this. So I'm just going to read some of this. I'll start from the beginning. Okay. The days of the week are something that are in constant use within our language and conversation. I'm sorry. I keep give me 1 second. I need to connect to the meeting from my phone so I don't keep getting interrupted as people are joining. 1 second. Okay. So the days of the week are something that are in constant use within our language and conversation. But what many do not know is that there are secret hidden meanings and messages embedded within many of the words that we use, giving them a far more significant and symbolic meaning than that of just a simple sound. So what that's saying is we got these words that we use, but we don't really understand meanings behind the words that we're using. It says astrology is something that is deeply rooted within ancient cultures across the globe. The Mayans, the ancient Egyptians, the Sumerians, and many other ancient cultures worship the sky and believe the historic origin of the humanity can be told by an understanding of the sky. So this is ancient. What we're about to see goes back thousands of years. Worship of the planets, worship of the sun, worship of the moon. And because all these different natures and cultures are worshiping all of these different planetary figures or the stars and the sun and the moon, you see that these names get placed into our calendar in the days of the week. And I think that it's important that we have an understanding of this, because we should be aware if what we're using to refer to a day is related to some pagan deity, or if it's related to a planet or something like that. We should be aware of that kind of stuff, because this is the type of things that Yah told the children of Israel to pay attention to, because Israel is supposed to be set apart. Let me keep reading. This may seem like a culture that we are currently far removed from. However, you will see in just a moment that the language we use every day celebrates these same ideas that the ancient traditions used to celebrate. And when I read that, it gives me examples of, like, a few months ago when we were looking at things like Starbucks, for example. And we see that Starbucks, the logo is a logo of Ishtar. And we know, or Ishtar, also called Ashtoreth, and we know that that is an actual pagan god in the Bible, that Elohim tells the Israelites they shouldn't have anything to do with Ishtar and Ashtoreth. Yet, when we go get our coffee, we got this big logo of this place calling Ishtar, which the Most High told us to stay away from. We're spending our money and giving it to Ishtar coffee. There's another way you could look at it. And that's exactly what they did in the ancient times. When you would go to a temple of Ishtar, or if you would go to a temple of Zeus, or if you would go to a temple, any of these temples where they worship all of these false gods, they would be exchanging money. It was not just like the way we think of going to a church or something like that. They did worship their God, but it was also a place where you would eat food. It's also a place where you would perform sacrifices. It was also a place of fornication. It was also a place where you would buy and sell things. So these are all different types of things that will happen. And we need to be aware of these things because they're in our culture. I'm not saying necessarily that it's wrong if you go into a Starbucks, but you at least need to be aware of your surroundings. Go ahead, Caleb. Okay, I can't hear you if you're talking. Let me keep going though.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah. Make it.
Okay, go ahead. I'll talk. I'll finish later.
Okay. The days of the week are of Latin origin, being named by the Romans with the word for the sun, the moon, and the 5 known planets of the time. These names have continued into most European languages, with English names we use having the Anglo-Saxon influence. Many people think of Monday as the first day of the week. However, it is actually Sunday. And dependent on how you interpret modern day culture, there could be a very real reason why Monday is used to signify the start of the work week in modern day society. So that's important actually, because I've asked people what's the first day of the week, just to say what they would say, see what they would say, and they say Monday. And I say, no, Sunday is really the first day of the week. So we have to keep that in mind as well, because if you don't know what the first day of the week is, then there's no way you can know what day the Sabbath is. But let's keep going. Sunday is Sunday. Sunday, meaning the day of the sun. There are many sun gods cross-culturally. The most famous, perhaps, are the three Egyptian sun gods: Horus, who is the rising of the sun; Ra, the noon sun; and Osiris, who represents the setting sun. The sun signifies creation, protection, power, and good health. Um, and speaking of, we're getting close to Passover. The plagues that happened in Egypt, as we've discussed many times before, each one of the plagues was against all the gods of Egypt. So the plague that was associated with the sun being turned to darkness was against these gods of the sun. So Ra, Osiris, Horus. Yah is showing the Egyptians, okay, your gods have power. Let's see if they really have any power. And so what does he do? He darkens the sun. And so all of the wise men, all the magicians, they're all trying to do whatever they can do to get the sun to start shining again. But Moses is showing them that your gods are nothing. There's only one true. So that's just an example. But Sunday, it's the day of the sun, worship of the sun. Monday is Moon Day, meaning the day of the moon. The moon is closely related to the reflection, as the moon's light comes from the reflection of the sun. This, of course, the polar opposite of what Monday are used for in modern day Western culture, being that Mondays usually represent chaos and returning to work after the weekend. So now we know Monday is representative of Moon Day. By the way, we're going to get into this later, but these names are all coming from the Romans. So these days are the Romans worshiped. They had different sun gods as well. They had the moon god. So of course, their days of the week, they're going to have these names. Next, Tuesday is Twisday. Tuesday. Tyr was a god of war and was equivalent to the Roman Mars. His main characteristics were that of honor, justice, and courage. So Tyr represents Mars, meaning Tuesday is Mars Day. So now we have a god of war. We got a false Elohim, false god named Tyr, but he's representing a planet called Mars. Okay. Next, we got Wednesday. Wednesday is Woden's Day, the Anglo-Saxon equivalent of the Norse Odin or the Roman Mercury, a sky god and the god of wisdom, poetry, commerce, travel, thievery, eloquence, and science. He is also the messenger of the other gods. Woden represents Mercury, meaning that Wednesday is Mercury Day. So we are we're kind of out of touch from what the Romans in ancient times. We're out of touch with these names, but they would have known exactly what Wednesday represents. They would have known exactly this is Woden's Day. Some of these movies that we watch, you're going to see, like Thursday is Thor's Day. So when we watch Marvel and we see Thor, he is a Norse god of thunder. This is why he has that hammer with the thunder. He's represented riding a chariot, which is drawn by goats, while wielding a hammer. He is the defender of Aesir, a tribe of gods, destined to kill and be killed by the Midgard serpent. Thor has been popularized by modern-day Marvel Comics, but is a real mythological character, and while there are differences, Thor is similar to Zeus, who is the Greek god of thunder. He is the equivalent to the Roman Jupiter, meaning Thursday is Jupiter Day. So now we're seeing connections in our entertainment, and we buy these Marvel action heroes for our kids, and we go to the movies, we watch these things, we get very excited because it's entertaining. It's definitely entertaining to watch all this, but what we're watching are false Roman gods that are related to planets, which they used to worship in ancient times. Friday is Frigg Day. Frigg is the Norse god of love and fertility. In most sources, she is described as wife to Odin, who represents Mercury Wednesday. Sources also connect her with the goddess Fulla. She is the equivalent of the Roman Venus, meaning that Friday is Venus Day. And the last one, Saturday is Saturn Day, with Saturn being the Roman god of agriculture, also known as Kronos, who is the son of Uranus and Gaia. He led the Titans, his brothers and sisters, to revolt against their father to become king of the gods. Saturn is concerned with the sowing of seeds, so a day for manifestation. Saturn's wife was Ops, who was the goddess of plenty. So Saturday is Saturn Day. Now, what's interesting to me about Saturday is that it's a day of agriculture and concerned with sowing of seeds. And of course, Yah explicitly told the Israelites not to go out and work on the seventh day, not to go and plant seeds or harvest, not to do any of that on the seventh day. And so on our calendar, we consider Saturday as the seventh day. So it's actually opposite of what the Most High says we should do. So I just wanted you to have an understanding of where these days come from. But before I go on, any questions? I know you had one, Caleb. Is there someone else or a comment before I go on?
I just was going to mention when you was mentioning Ishtar, that's where we get our Easter from. You can see the same root words in it.
Mm-hmm.
And Easter was developed, by the Christians, but it was also in hand in hand with the ruling class at that time, or whether you call them pagan or whatever. But that's where the whole concept of Easter even came from, and the bunny with the egg was because of fertility.
Exactly.
That was all I was gonna say.
Yep. I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of the things I'm going to cover later on. So yeah, exactly. Okay, let's keep going. Now we're going to look at months of the year. First, we looked at days. Now we're going to look at our months and what they mean. So, how did the months get their names? We're not going to read all of this, but we'll look at some of it. Because, okay. Today we follow the Gregorian calendar, but it's based on the ancient Roman calendar, believed to be invented by Romulus, who first served as the first king of Rome around 753 BC. The Roman calendar, a complicated lunar calendar had 12 months, like our current calendar, but only 10 of the months had formal names. Basically, winter was a dead period of time when the government and military wasn't active. So they only had names for the time period we think of as March through December. So this is all connected to today. Rome is all connected because if you think about it, where did the European nations come out of? Anybody? Anybody know where the
You mean
Europeans?
Japheth?
Yes, they came out of Japheth, but I'm speaking like the modern European nations.
Oh.
Like, what nation did they come out of?
Came out of Rome.
Rome. That's right. So yes, so Prophet Miller is right, and Caleb is right. The European nations all came out of Rome. So when you see England, or you see Spain or Portugal or even Germany, all of these nations started with Rome. They had Roman rulers, and they eventually become their own nations. But Rome is the mother or the father, however you want to call it, of all of these different nations. So the calendar, amongst other things, the culture, many things, the reason all of the European nations eventually are going to follow the same calendar as Rome is because they come out of Rome. I mean, not including all the nations that get colonized by Rome. So if you come out of Rome, or you're a nation that gets colonized by Rome, then you got to do what the Romans do. So March, or Martius, was named for Mars, the god of war, because this is the month when active military campaigns resumed. May, Maius, and June, Junius, were also named for goddesses Maya and Juno. April, or Aprilis, is thought to stem from Latin aperio, meaning to open, a reference to the opening buds of springtime. Then the rest of the months are basically just numbers. Quintilis, quint means 5, sextilis means 6, September, sept, it means 7, and October, octo, it means 8, 9th, November, and 10th December. So remember, initially there was only 10 months that had names. So it seems like half of them had gods and goddesses, and the other ones were just related to numbers. But then eventually January and February were added to the end of the year, giving all 12 months proper names. So January was named after Janus, the Roman god of beginnings and transitions, while February's name is believed to stem from February, an ancient festival dedicated to ritual springtime cleaning and washing. Okay, so now we have I could have read this. This would have been even better, but it's okay. We just went through it. So now we have a better understanding of where the names came from. Yeah, okay, so let's keep going. Now we're going to look at the history of the Gregorian calendar. Bear with me. I know it might be tedious. It might be like, why are we talking about all this? But you're going to see in the end. Okay. So as I was studying the Hebrew calendar and studying the Gregorian calendar, which is what we follow, I learned about this term. I still don't know how you pronounce it. If it's sidereal or sidereal, but either way, I remember studying this term in the past. I don't know if I was in college or if I was in high school, but I studied this term, and I recognized, I believe it was when I was in college, that what we're normally taught in grade school is wrong. Even if it's just a little bit wrong about the rotation of the earth and the time it takes for a year, even if it's just a little bit wrong, that throws the calendar off. So we're about to see that. Okay, Happy New Sidereal Year. What New Year's really means. While most people know that the Western Gregorian calendar is solar and measures the Earth's full rotation around the sun, An orbit, which takes about 1 year, few people know that the Earth's rotation around the sun is seldom the same. Year in and year out, in fact, our orbit is quite irregular and is called it's either sidereal or sidereal year. Then it says, by the way, a sidereal year is 6 hours and 9.1626 minutes longer than the standard calendar solar year of 365 days, which is one of the reasons why we have a leap year every 4 years. So let me see. I'll keep reading. Of course, not every culture bases its calendar on a solar cycle. And in fact, more people on our planet use a lunar cycle. Lunar is representative of the moon. A moon cycle, which is about 29 and a half days per month. Lunar cycles predate our solar calendar. Since the Earth's rotation around the sun is relatively recent discovery and are still in use by many of the major cultures and peoples. The oldest known lunar calendar, by the way, is discovered in Scotland and dates back around the 8,000 BC to 10,000 years ago. So now this is going to kind of what Caleb was talking about earlier. It's entirely forgivable for people who use the Western Gregorian calendar to assume that our calendar is now 2015 years old, but that just ain't so. It is, in fact, as of this writing, which is in 2015, only 433 years old, having been brought into existence in 1582 to mark the precise celebration of Easter. So this is one thing I learned as I was researching. Several different articles were pointing to this fact, that the Gregorian calendar is based on Easter. And I said, wow. So all of the deception, the movements of the calendar were not on the true biblical calendar. It's all about a religious holiday that, as Caleb was saying, that Easter comes from Ishtar, at least the root word does, which is about celebrating a holiday and worshiping a god which the God of Israel said don't worship. So, and then we got Easter bunnies, which bunnies don't lay eggs, but you know, you can study the Babylonian history of the gods, which we did a few months ago, and I showed you the stories of the Babylonian gods and how eggs were being laid. And so you can just see throughout history where the bunnies come from if you just follow it. But everything is, our calendar is centered around this Easter. So let's keep reading. Why is our calendar called the Gregorian calendar? Because it was introduced by Pope Gregory the 13th via a papal bull, which is a decree, signed on February 24th, 1582. So it seems like every time we learn about some deception, somehow the Catholic Church always has something to do with it. I don't think I'm the only one that is noticing this, but they just seem to have their hands in about everything. Because remember, right now in modern times, they don't usually use that word Roman. They just say the Catholic Church, but it's really the Roman Catholic Church. And the Pope had more power than the king, the Caesars. In fact, throughout history, the popes and the Caesars, which are like emperors or kings, would go back and forth in their struggles for power. Sometimes the religious system, which the Pope ruled, he would have more power, or sometimes the Caesars or the kings, they would have more power, and sometimes they would disobey each other's orders, all throughout Roman history. So, but here we have the Pope, which is a religious figure, determining the calendar. He's putting forth a decree in 1582. It says Pope Gregory's 13th motivation for his reform was that the Roman Julian calendar, which had preceded it, talking about the Gregorian calendar, placed the time between vernal equinoxes, a solar year or a full rotation around the sun, at 365.25 days, when it in fact is roughly 11 minutes shorter per year. So what he's saying is they were using the Julian calendar, but it was slightly off. And because it did not accurately reflect the rotation of a full year, the rotation of the sun, it was throwing things off. After a long amount of period of time, certain holidays and certain seasons would change. The days would change. So with the aid of Jesuit priest astronomer Christopher Clavius, it was determined that the 11-minute error added up to about 3 days every 4 centuries. That resulted in the equinox occurring on March 11th and moving earlier and earlier in the Julian calendar. So now, you know why that 11-minute inaccuracy irked Pope Gregory. The date for celebrating Easter wasn't at all reliable. And Easter is the single most important date for the Roman Catholic Church. Yes, they originally wanted to peg the new calendar to the date of birth for Jesus, but that's quite an iffy thing. So really, the Catholic Church, they're coming up with days to celebrate different events based on what they wanted to do, not necessarily when the day actually happened. They're just picking dates. They're saying they originally wanted to do it with the birth of Jesus, but they decided not to do that. That might cause too many problems. It says no one was really certain of the year, and most scholars agree that Jesus or Yeshua's likely birth month was actually March. Some people believe Yeshua was born around Passover. Others believe he was born around the Feast of Tabernacles. But we'll talk about that later. It says, why then do we celebrate it on December 25th? Because early Christians hid their celebration on December 25th, when Roman pagan festivals, Saturnalia, were already going strong for the winter solstice. So the date of December 25th is chosen as the date of Yeshua's birth because they were already celebrating Saturnalia. And if you learn about these pagan festivals, as it's talking about, it's the birth of another god. And so why not have the birth of Christ also be on December 25th? So it has nothing to do with the actual birth, but more to do with convenience. Because one thing about the Roman Catholic Church, and some of you may already know this, especially if you were ever in the Roman Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, if they go to a particular nation and they introduce Catholicism, they allow the locals within that country to still incorporate their gods into Catholicism and worship their gods. I saw this for the first time I went to Mexico. When I went to Mexico, my wife and I, we went to this show, and they're doing all their dances, they're doing all of their ancient cultural different things. And Mexico, in Mexico it's a heavily Catholic nation. So within their show that they're doing, they start to bring in as they're dancing, and they got all the different figures that they're wearing and all of that, the costumes. They're bringing in all of their local Mayan gods, because I was in the Yucatan Peninsula area where all the Mayan pyramids and everything are at. So they start showing all their Mayan gods, but then they're also doing Catholic stuff. And I'm like, why are they bringing up their Mayan gods, but also celebrating like Catholic Mary and all that? Like, it was a real eye opener to me when I realized, oh, everywhere I go where there's Catholicism, they are still worshiping the gods that they used to worship, but they're incorporating Christ in the Bible. So it's a mixture. It's a mixture. We've talked about mixture so many times. The word syncretism. Go ahead, Ty. I can't hear you if you're talking, Ty. You might need to turn your mic on. I think we muted it earlier when we were in a meeting.
Hey, Joel, can you let Mark in? He said he got kicked out.
Oh, sure. Ty, your mic is still on mute. So can you let, if you text him, ask him to rejoin, and I'll re-let him in if he got kicked out. Okay,
right.
Ty, are you there? Like I said, you got to go to your settings and turn on your mute, turn your speaker up. But I'm gonna keep going, and you can interject if you figure out how to get your mic to work. So going back to what I was talking about, the Catholic Church. Actually, the word Catholic means universal. Let's look up the definition of Catholic. Catholic definition. I need to get a older dictionary that shows the okay. I love going to Webster's 1828 whenever there's something to see in the older dictionary. So Webster is one of Webster's early versions of his dictionary, 1828 version. And as you can see, Catholic, the first definition is universal or general. So let's see, originally this epithet was given to the Christian church in general, but is now appropriated to the Romish church. It's another name for Roman. And in strictness, there is no Catholic church or universal Christian communion. So let's look at the second definition. Catholic means liberal, not narrow-minded, partial, or bigoted. Third definition, liberal as Catholic principles. So the Catholics, as being universal, they include, it's an inclusive religion. And this is why you can see what's called the ecumenical movement within Catholicism. where you have the Pope joining Islam and joining Christian pastors, joining Jewish rabbis, joining the Greek Orthodox Church, joining Hindus, joining Buddhists, all together as one group and praying together, all religions praying together, and as if we're all one people who search or worship one God.
Don't forget about the gays and trans too.
Oh yeah, you got to include them in there. So I'm gonna show you. Some of you may not have seen this, but in the Middle East, there is this headquarters now where called the Abraham. Let me show you. Some of you may have already seen this. One World Religion Headquarters. I forget what it's called, but I'm just gonna say one word. Okay. I think this is it.
Now we've got 4 times more items online to give you more ways to create. Only at Michaels.com.
Okay. So here,
This year,
let me back it up just a little bit. So if you've never seen this video before, this is a video of this center that was just recently built. And you see, you got the Pope here. He's meeting with all these different religious leaders, and they're, signing documents, agreeing to be at peace with one another. This is 3 different facilities right here. One is a mosque, one is a church, a Catholic church, and one is a synagogue. And they're all very beautiful facilities, extremely beautiful facilities. And here they are, the Pope is spearheading everything. He's the main guy. I think they even named this facility after him. But this is this is nothing new. This is what the Catholic Church has been doing from their inception. See, he's meeting with Buddhists, he's meeting with everyone. And I'm not gonna play the whole video, but I just wanted you to see the point of what I'm talking about when I say the Catholic Church is the universal church. And then when we read these things about the Pope, anyway, let's keep going. Let me just keep reading. Yeah, I'll post the website once I'm done with this. So, because it was introduced by Pope Gregory XIII via papal bill, a decree signed on February 24th, it was several centuries before it was adopted throughout the Western world. So this decree to change the calendar was instituted by a Catholic Pope, but it affects the entire world right now. One man, one institution, religious institution, now affects the whole world. Even if you're a nation that doesn't follow the Gregorian calendar, you at least have to be aware of it, because all the top nations use it. America uses it. England uses it. Australia uses it. Everywhere uses this calendar now, just about. So you have to, if you have your own calendar, that's okay, but you still have to operate on the Gregorian calendar if you're going to do business and do trade and all of those types of things. So Pope Gregory XIII's motivation for his reform was that the Roman Julian calendar Oh, I'm sorry, I already read that. Yeah, I already read that. Let me go here. Pope Gregory the 13th et al. Calculated Easter, by the way, using the Hebrew calendar to accurately fix the date of the Last Supper, which was in fact a Passover meal that Jesus was attending with his fellow Jewish disciples. Pope Gregory the 13th wanted to be sure that Easter was being celebrated on the correct date, year in and year out. So the date of the Last Supper was the starting point for the development of his new calendar. Now, that's what he wanted to do, but actually he's wrong. In the Jewish calendar that he is using is not the correct calendar of Yah. So that's what we're going to look at next. So now we know it's 365 days. Now let's look at the next thing. Ty, if you fix your mic, you can bring up whatever you were going to say, but I don't know if it's working. Yeah, doesn't look like it's working. So now, actually, I'm going to, before we do that, since we were just talking about the Pope and we're talking about Easter, there's one more thing I wanted to show you. The Council of Nicaea, 325, Easter. Just to prove to you that when the Romans change the date and they're trying to match Easter up with Passover, I'll show you originally what was the intent of the Romans and the Catholic Church. And they still believe this way. So first, the controversy over the correct date for Easter began in early Christianity as early as 2nd century AD. Discussions and disagreement over the best method of computing the date of Easter Sunday has been ongoing ever since and remains unresolved. Different Christian denominations continue to celebrate Easter on different dates, with Eastern and Western Christian churches being notable. Okay, so now let's look at the First Council of Nicaea in 325. So the Council of Nicaea in 325 was basically when the Emperor Constantine, he basically gathers all of the religious leaders, not only of the Catholic Church, but even of other, like even of the Orthodox Church, and coming up with different laws. The World Council of Churches comes out of that, which all the major denominations follow. So they're getting all of their orders from the Catholic Church, essentially. But let's read this. In 325, an ecumenical council, the First Council of Nicaea, established two rules. First, let's look, what does ecumenical mean? I brought that word up earlier, ecumenical. Okay, ecumenical means of worldwide scope or applicability, universal, of or relating to the worldwide Christian church, concerned with establishing or promoting unity among churches or religions. How about that? So you mean to tell me the same thing they're doing today with this one world religion stuff? You got the Pope uniting all of these different religions. They were doing this all since 325 AD. So this is what it means when they said they had an ecumenical council. Like I said, Catholic Church is inclusive. Every religion, hey, you're okay. You can worship your other gods. Just give us your tithes and offering and pay us indulgences so none of your friends and family stays in purgatory too long. So it's like that root of money, that love of money being the root of all evil and all that. But let's keep going. So in 325, the Ecumenical Council, the first council of Nicaea, established two rules: independence from the Jewish calendar. Wow. That's their first rule. We want to be separate from the Jewish calendar. And I'm assuming because this was so early on in 325 AD, at this point, I'm sure they know what the actual calendar that the Israelites followed was. Whatever calendar that is that they're following, they're saying, we don't want nothing to do with that. We want to be independent. Second is worldwide uniformity. Wow. So that is the goal of this Council of Nicaea, which in this Council of Nicaea, many, many things that the church follows today, to this day, is because of this council. Not only this council, they had multiple councils, but this is one of the most famous ones, because here is where they separated Easter from Passover. So let's keep reading. It says, however, it did not provide any explicit rules to determine that date, writing only, all our brethren in the East who formerly followed a custom of the Jews and henceforth to celebrate the said most sacred feast of Easter at the same time with the Romans and yourselves, the Church of Alexandria, and all those who have observed Easter from the beginning. Shortly before the Nicene Council in 314, the Provincial Council of Arles and Gaul had maintained that the Lord's Pesach, Pesach is the Hebrew word for Passover, should be observed on the same day throughout the world, and that each year the Bishop of Rome should send out letters setting the date of Easter. So, in other words, early on, there were leaders that were in other councils who said, hey, we should all be worshiping on the same day. Pesach, Passover should be observed on the same day. It shouldn't be that we're doing these different things. This was not something that I think was easily accepted. I know it was not easily accepted by all the religious leaders, even within the Catholic Church. It was not. And one of the reasons we know this is because, during this period of time, there was a big split within the Catholic Church. You had what we now have as the Catholic Church, but split from the Orthodox, the Eastern Orthodox Church. So the Orthodox community decided to keeping Passover on the same days. Even to this day, there's a group of Catholics that are considered Orthodox Catholics. And those Orthodox Catholics, even though they still call it Easter, they keep Easter on what what the Jews considered to be Passover. So there's still division, but my point in showing you all this is so that you know the reason we are so confused about these things, the reason that pastors don't teach this the way that they should, is because they're taught by the Catholic Church. And so all various denominations, whether
You're fading away, Joel. You're fading away.
We're losing your audio.
Oh, I'm sorry. All the various denominations, whether it's a United Methodist, whether it's a Baptist or Presbyterian or whatever, they're all the schools, the seminaries that the pastors learn from. All of these things came out of World Council of Churches, and who was leading that? The Catholic Church. All of the different. So this is why there's so much confusion. There's so much confusion on this Passover stuff. Yes, Lisa.
So we were discussing on the Apostles' Creed, right? And the end of it says, "I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church, the
Yes.
communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body, and the life everlasting. Amen." And I was trying to get a further understanding of what you're saying, what that was saying, and I guess now that you're talking about it, now I understand. I think that correlates because I'm like, I didn't understand what that. Why would it say the Holy Catholic Church?
Yep.
But if it's all inclusive and it's universal, then that's the reason why it says, "I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church," right? And then it has
Yeah.
an asterisk there. So,
And
yeah.
that is a good point. When I was younger, I used to always
Can you
read
turn your
that.
volume up? You're muffled again.
Okay. When I was younger, I used to always read that Apostles' Creed and wonder, why does it say the Holy Catholic Church?
Mm-hmm.
But as you're saying, when you do this history, oh, I need to turn my mic up.
Yeah.
When you do this history, it all becomes clear. And this is why last week, when the title of the message was the duty of kings, the glory of Yah, and the glory of kings, the duty of king. What, I forgot how I titled it, but our duty is to search things out that is hidden. He conceals a matter, and it's our job to search it out. But all of these confusions and lies and deceptions, they just begin to unravel. Okay, I lost my page. Okay, right here. So, okay, let's keep going.
When we were discussing it, the person I was discussing it was saying it's not the Roman Catholic Church, it's the Christian church of all times and all places, the true Christian church. So I still didn't get it, but I didn't know enough to debate anymore. So that's why I was asking for the website, because I want to read more into it. So I know this discussion is going to come up again. So, yeah.
Yes, I'll send it, because as I showed you, the primary definition for Catholic is universal.
Universal. Yeah. And it makes sense now.
Now, and if you look up these modern definitions, these modern dictionaries, you know, they've changed it. So now it says Catholic means a member of the Catholic Church, stuff like that. But that's not what it means. It means universal. So inclusive and all of that, ecumenical, whenever you see the words ecumenical, because they use this word a lot. They have a lot of ecumenical councils as of this day, and they go all around the world. Maybe some of you saw a few years ago, Pope Francis, he met with, what's that name? Kenneth Copeland. He met with, I forgot the name. Robert. He comes, a bunch of different preachers that come on TBN. They all went to meet the Pope. And I said, it's all out in the open. They are part of this universal system, this universal church, which is actually part of the beast. Man, I wasn't even planning on talking about all this, but Rome is fourth.
Can I ask you what the economic? I can't even pronounce it. The economical symbol of faith is, because that's what they're saying now. That's what they're calling it, the economical symbol of faith. Do you know what that is?
It's ecumenical, but
ecumenical symbol of faith. So it's like are they saying that that's what the Apostle Creed is now, the economical symbol of faith? Is that what they're correlating it to as?
That's what they changed the name to? Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's what I was reading, so I'm just asking you.
I've not, as far as the Apostles' Creed, I don't know. But if that's what they changed the name to, then what they're saying, because of what ecumenical means, is that this is a statement of faith for anybody
okay, so
and everybody.
well, when I was reading this background about the Apostles' Creed, it says more than any other Christian creed, it may justly be called an economical, I cannot say it right, symbol of faith. So that's
Yeah.
why I was just okay.
So ecumenical, when we looked at the definition, it means worldwide, universal. It means inclusive is a newer way you could say it. So if it's an ecumenical statement of faith, that means it's a statement of faith for all people, no matter what God you serve, no matter what religion. It's a statement of faith for everybody. So one of the things that Francis did in this center that I showed you, they call it One World Religion Headquarters. That's not the actual name, but that's what people are calling it. He has every religious leader, he lets all of them pray in the name of their God. So he lets the Muslims pray in the name of Allah. He lets the Hindu people pray in the name of their God, and the Buddhists pray in the name of their God. The Christians pray in the name of their God, and the Jewish in the name of their God. And they're all praying for peace and coming together and all that stuff that the Bible says when they say that sudden destruction comes. That's exactly what they're praying. But he's not stopping them if they say it in the name of their God, because it's ecumenical. It's inclusive of everybody. But this is not nothing new. As we see, this is in 325. They're still using these terms. Okay. So let's keep going. Now you can start to understand, though. I think the whole reason for me bringing this up was to show you the Pope is the one that sent a decree. He made a papal decree. They call it papal bull, which signified the changing of the calendar. So the Pope has much more power than we realize today. The Jesuits, which is also an extension of the Catholic Church, they have way more power and influence than we realize. When you just begin to study the US presidents, you'll realize that the majority of them were trained under Jesuit schools, including Biden. They went to schools that are owned by or controlled by the Jesuits at some point within their schooling. And the Jesuit is the military branch of the Catholics, of the Roman Catholic Church. So when the Roman Catholic Church needs something done and they need to strong arm someone, they use the Jesuits. The Jesuits are also called the Black Popes. Let me show you. I'm definitely not going to get to my lesson, but I need to show you this because a lot of people don't know this stuff. So Jesuits, Society of Jesuits, also known as the Jesuit Order. This is one of their symbols, IHS in his service. It says, is a religious order of clerics, regular of pontifical right for men in the Catholic Church, headquartered in Rome. It was founded in 1540 by Ignatius of Loyola. Some of y'all might recognize this name because of Loyola, the school, the university. So that is a Jesuit school, which is one of the reasons I was letting you know Many, I think even Bill Clinton, many of our presidents and leaders, even Obama, were trained at some point by Jesuits. So Ignatius of Loyola, he's the one that starts this, and six companions with the approval of who? Pope Paul. So the Pope is the one that's approving this order. Now, this Wikipedia article is not going to give you all the details of the Jesuits. You need to do your own research. It doesn't take a whole lot of research, though. You just can type some stuff in Google, and you'll find plenty of information. You type some stuff in YouTube, you will find plenty of information. You skip all the propaganda, and then you will find plenty of information about the Jesuits. Now, what is our Pope's name? The Pope right now, his name is Pope Francis, right? Yeah, Pope Francis. One thing that's interesting about Pope Francis is that he is the first Pope that has ever come out of the Society of the Jesuits. He's the first one. There has never been a Pope that came out of this society. And many Catholics were very upset that he was chosen because he's a Jesuit, because the Catholics know the history of the Jesuits. They are very violent. They have done many bad things. So the Jesuits are called the Black. The Jesuits have a pope too, and he's called the Black Pope because they wear black. But of course, we got the white popes, which are the regular Catholic Church popes. But this is just another reason why I believe we're in the last days, because of who the Catholic Church decided to make their leader. One of the ones that come from the Jesuits. I was going to see if I could find some pictures, but yeah, see, you can see here in all their pictures, they're wearing black. But anyways, this is not my focus. Let me go back. Someone raise their hand? You can speak.
Well, I was just gonna say, is it safe to say that they're like, you know how it seems like every government has a undercover wing of
Yes.
forces, like the Iranians do.
Yes.
Even the U.S. does. They call it the CIA, but they still have a black budget with a whole bunch of undercover forces. So, is it safe to say the Jesuits is kind of like that?
I think that's the best description I could give, because Rome, not Rome necessarily, but the Vatican is its own nation within a nation. The Vatican. Search Vatican here. It's a city state. Vatican City is a city state, kind of like Washington, D.C. in a way. Washington, D.C. is not a state. It's not necessarily within the state, but it's like its own territory that gets to make its own laws. Vatican, I don't know if that's the best example, but the Vatican, they have their own police. They have their own government. So Italy, the government within Italy is separate, kind of like the Native Americans here in the U.S. That if you go on a Native American reservation, you're under the Native Americans' rule of law. In fact, there's been police officers, American police officers, who try to go to the Native American reservations because they're chasing someone, and those people went onto the reservation and they tried to arrest that person, and the Native Americans threatened to arrest the police officers.
Because
because
they're out of jurisdiction.
that's right, they're out of their jurisdiction. It's the same thing if you go to Vatican City, you're in the jurisdiction of Vatican City. So what you're saying about the Jesuits, I would liken it to like a CIA or something like that, some secret organization that is able to do things, and they do it at the to be honest, the Jesuits give orders to the Pope. It's not the other way around. But I'm gonna have, if y'all are more interested in this, I have to do a whole nother Bible study on this, because it's a whole topic by itself.
I can't wait. You start talking about this, and then when we start talking about the Sesticate Trust and how the Vatican is involved,
Yes.
I can't wait to talk about that stuff.
Yep. That you're right. It's all involved with all of that. So okay, I'm gonna try to wrap this up because I'm going much longer than I was hoping. So let me go. Where's my stuff? Are y'all enjoying this? I hope this is not too much history and stuff.
Man, I'm loving this, man. This is beautiful. This is excellent knowledge. Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent teaching.
Hey, all right. Thank you. Thank you. Sometimes I need a little bit of confirmation because everybody's so quiet. I don't know. All right. So now I'm gonna skip this one for now. The modern day Jewish. No, I'm not. Let's talk about it. So now we're going to look at the modern Jewish calendar. I want to make a distinction between the modern Jewish calendar and the actual biblical calendar. There's several reasons, and I've been following this calendar myself to observe Sabbaths, to observe the appointed times, all the way up into this year. So I'm not, as I keep going, like from this point on, I want you all to know I'm still learning. Just like everyone else is learning, I'm still learning. So I'm giving no condemnation whatsoever, because I'm still gathering information and research. But what I'm attempting to share with you today are facts. That's all I want to share with you, facts. And then if I have an opinion based on the facts, I'm going to let you know that. And based on the word, I will let you know that. But if we come and we see that there's certain days that might not be right because we're learning the actual day and the actual calendar and all of that, there's no condemnation. Yah knows we are seeking him. He knows we're seeking to do our best. He knows that we're coming out of Babylon. We're coming out of this system. So there's a time. He has grace. In fact, Yah doesn't give grace to everybody. Yah gives grace to those that keep his commandments. That's what the scriptures say. Grace is like this. When you stand before a judge, you're at the mercy of the court. But the judge has the power to extend mercy to you, but he's only going to extend mercy if he believes that you're going to do the right thing after you leave his courtroom. Yah is the same way according to the scriptures. And if y'all need me to show you the scriptures, I will. I don't have them prepared, but I'll find them. According to the scriptures, Yah extends mercy. He extends grace to those that keep his commandments, just like a judge. If you go to the judge and you say, yeah, judge, I'm gonna ask that you let me out, let me go free. But tomorrow I'm going to go do what I just did that got me in this predicament right here. The judge is going to say, nope, you're going to jail. Nope, you're going to have your fines to pay. And he may even make your penalty even stricter because you have the arrogance to even say that. So the judge in many cases, though, if he believes you're going to do the right thing, you're saying, I'm going to follow the law. I'm going to do what I can. You know, sometimes they will pardon you. It depends on the judge. It depends on how he's feeling that day. It depends on if he is merciful judge. And our Heavenly Father is the same way. And so when it comes to these things that we're learning, some of the things that I learned over the past few weeks, when I found out that I was in error, I just was like, oh my God, I felt so bad. But then I quickly realized this is what his grace is for. His grace is when we mess up, when we make a mistake, he's not going to just punish us and send us to hell because we made a mistake. No, if we're seeking him and we're trusting him, and we're looking to him and we're asking him to reveal us the truth, he's going to make sure we find the truth, and he's going to extend his mercy to us because he's a loving father. Just like my children, when they mess up, but I know they weren't trying to mess up. They're actually trying to do the right thing, but they made a mistake. They're trying to please their dad. Of course, all I got is love for them. I'll just correct them. He's just like that with us. Okay, so this is the Hebrew, I'll say the Jewish calendar, the modern Jewish calendar. And right now, it's the month of Adar, and Adar is corresponding right now with March. So once Adar is over, which will be on March 22nd, then that will begin a new month called Nisan, which is also called in Hebrew Abib. Nisan is the Babylonian name for the month of Abib. So the modern Judaism uses the Babylonian names. So now the problem that I have with the calendar, I thought I had this up, but maybe I don't, is that in the scriptures don't talk about there being 13 months in the calendar, in the Hebrew calendar, Yah's calendar. There's only 12 months mentioned in the scripture. But the modern day Jewish calendar, there's 12 months and sometimes 13. So just like in our Gregorian calendar, we have a leap year, which is basically just an added day every 4 years. In order to reconcile the Jewish calendar, they have a leap month. So it's not every 4 years though. I forget the interval. It might be every two years or every 3 years they add an extra month. But that's not consistent with the word. So that alone makes me question the modern Jewish day calendar. Now let me see if I can find. I thought I had this up, but I'm not seeing it. So let me find it. Say Jewish calendar. Say Chabad. I think this is it. No, that's not it. Maybe it's this one. I'm sorry, bear with me. Jewish calendar. Months. Okay, I think this is it. Hebrew months. So Chabad is basically a Jewish organization, and they have a lot of information materials about just Jewish life in general. So it says, ever since God took out took us out of Egypt, the Jewish people have been keeping track of time and celebrating the festivals according to the lunar calendar. Remember, we talked about the lunar calendar earlier, which is based on the moon, which contains 12 or 13 months. Every month is either 29 or 30 days long, beginning and ending on a special day known as Rosh Chodesh, the head of the month. The months were once declared by a Bet Din, a rabbinical court, after the new moon had been sighted, but now follow a predetermined calendar. So the 12 is 12 months or 13 months because they're basing it on a lunar calendar, which is based on the moon. So the reason, or I won't say this is the reason, but in the scriptures, you'll see the word new month, like Passover, the month of Passover, which is Abib, is the beginning, the new month. Abib 1 would be called Rosh Chodesh. Rosh means the head, Chodesh means month. But one of the things that the Jewish people do is they interpret this word as moon as well as month. But the word does not mean moon. It means exactly what they says it means, month. So because of that, they're using the lunar calendar. And if you use a lunar calendar, then the days are only 354 days, I believe. A lunar calendar is 354. It's either 354 or 356 days, which we know is not a full year. So in order to reconcile that, they have to add another month, a 13th month. But the Bible doesn't speak of a 13th month. They come up with a name that doesn't exist. So we're seeing some insertions similar as what the Catholic Church has done. The Catholic Church is changing days. Easter, they're changing it to be on a day separate of Passover. The Jewish, I'm talking about the modern Jewish, not the ancient, but the modern Jewish people, in order to accommodate their wrong calendar, they have to add another month. And what we're going to find out is that the scriptures actually tell us how many days there should be in a year. All right, let's keep going. This is a little bit about the Jewish calendar. Now, I want to show you an article about a 364-day calendar that was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay, so in an area called Qumran in Israel is where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, and they were found in a cave. And in that cave, they found many, many manuscripts of the Bible written in Hebrew. They found manuscripts of other books that used to be in our Bible but are not included in our Bible anymore. They found law books referring to how the community of Qumran would conduct their lives. They had a legal system, and they found books that explain those things, as well as many other very important facts that help us actually understand the scriptures even more. Because the people that lived in the Qumran community actually lived there during the time of Yeshua and John the Baptist. In fact, many people, it's not, you can't say with 100% certainty, but many people believe that John the Baptist was a part of the Qumran community, because the Qumran community was a group of priests They were a group of priests that were Zadik, meaning they were righteous. And because Jerusalem and the leaders of Israel were so corrupt during the time of Yeshua, they moved out of the normal population of people. They moved out to the desert, and they had their own community, and they kept the Torah according to how they believed they really should keep it, because you had things that were so backwards during the time of Yeshua, like people that were the high priests weren't even qualified to be the high priest or the high priest, such as like Caiaphas. Remember, we read the scriptures that Caiaphas was the high priest. You also see the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And during the time of Yeshua, the Sadducees were in control of the temple and of Jerusalem, and they were in control of the priesthood. But as most of you probably know, you cannot be a priest unless you are a Levite who is a son of Aaron. And the Sadducees were not Levites, sons of Aaron. That just is one example of how backwards things were in Jerusalem, how corrupt things were during the time of Yeshua. It might help you understand a little bit more why Yeshua turns over the money tables when he goes to the temple. He said, "You've made my father's house a den of robbers, or a den of thieves," because it was all about the money. It's all about corruption. And one of the things that they would do is when people would buy a lamb, purchase a lamb, for sacrifice, sometimes people would have to come on long journeys to Jerusalem. They didn't have cars, so they had to walk or ride camels or donkeys. And so many people, it was too long of a journey to bring their animals all the way to Jerusalem for the Feast of Passover or the Feast of Tabernacles. So what they would do is buy a lamb or a ram or whatever animal they needed once they got to Jerusalem. And what the priests during that time were doing were charging, not just the priests, but people that were selling the animals, just the whole system in general. They were way overcharging what they should have been charging so that people could just buy an animal to do their sacrifice for their family. And so this is why Yeshua says, you den of thieves, you robbers, because they are overcharging so much more than they should have been charging. The whole thing just became about money, which it is today still. If you go to Israel, it's all about money. But it's another day. Next, let's go to newly deciphered Dead Sea Scroll reveals 364-day calendar. So I'm not going to read all this, but you can see it on the screen. It's talking about 62 Dead Scroll fragments that were found, and they were pieced together. I'll start right here. Ratson and Ben Dove deciphered the code on the reconstructed scroll called Scroll 4Q324D and revealed that the scroll describes a 364-day calendar used by the Qumran community that lived in the Judean desert. This Qumran calendar gives us insight into how the community organized the seasons and religious festivals, and it sheds light on scribal customs. The Dead Sea Scrolls, considered the greatest manuscript find of all time. And you may say, well, sure, it's the greatest find of all time. But the reason they're saying that is because there was so much information, historic information found in those Dead Sea Scrolls that confirm that the scriptures as we have them today in the Hebrew form, not English and all these translations, the Hebrew texts are primarily accurate. There are some variances, but for the most part, generally speaking, the Hebrew text from which the Bible we have has been translated from is generally accurate. Now, one of the big problems is our translations are not accurate. Not only are our translations not accurate, but there are many books that have been removed from the canon. Before I go into this 364-day year, I want to show you an example. I'm going to the Sefer Bible website, which is sefer.com. Oops, this is not it. Let me see. Sefer Bible. Prophet Miller's always talking about this. I know Ty just bought this as well. The Sefer Bible has many missing books, but also it translates the name of Yah more accurately. Like we use the name Lord, and it uses his actual name. But anyway, one of the things that I wanted to show you on this site is the different translations. Yes, Caleb?
Okay, so like the writers of that Sefer Bible, they weren't put inside the canon, and the canon was supposed to be an ecumenical thing. So those guys were considered like outcasts, right? Like the Gnostics. Am I right?
Yeah, you're right. The Gnostics were, because the Gnostics have other books as well.
So
Yeah.
So if I'm just trying to understand, if the Roman Catholics was trying to be so ecumenical, why did they include those people? Or were they purposefully not included? And you understand where I'm coming from?
Are you saying why did they include extra books?
No, I'm saying like the Roman Catholics of the day and back in 300 when they had the Council of Nicaea, they were being ecumenical. They were being universal. They were trying to include everyone, this one world type religion. Well, my question is, if they were so ecumenical, why didn't they include those other groups of people? Because they were pretty much like outcasts. And if they didn't, since they didn't, was it specific? Did they specifically not include them, like for a reason? You understand what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying now. So, in order for a religion or a group or whatever to be included, you have to be subservient to the Catholic Church. You have to agree that the Catholic Church and that the Pope is your leader.
And those guys didn't.
They must not have. That's why there were so many splits from the Catholic Church.
They were even trying to kill them. They were going after them, weren't they?
Yeah.
They were hiding out. They were, almost like the Reformation.
All this stuff should be taught in church, and it's not. They were ruthless.
So was the Jesuits was the ones going after them?
Well, the Jesuits is a newer branch of the Catholic Church. So I don't know if there was any Jesuits during that time.
They probably were, but they probably were called something else.
Yeah, they might have had a different name. Yeah.
That's the Knights of Templar and all
Right.
them. You
Yeah,
know,
that's what I was gonna say.
that's
The
where
nice.
that's where they came from.
Yeah, you're right. That they it wasn't Jesuits, but they changed the names of different groups to confuse people. They just like they changed the names of all the different nations in Africa and the nations in Europe. You know, they create all these borders. It's all about confusing, so you don't know the truth.
Who controls the pen controls history, or however
Yes.
that goes.
Yep. So one thing I want to show, I'm showing you 7 different Bible translations. And the Sefer has the most, but let's look at the 1611 King James Bible. As early as or I should say as late as 1611, the King James Bible had many books that we don't have in our Bible. One of them, the Epistle of Jeremiah, one called Tobit, one called First Baruch, Prayer of Manasseh. Some of these books y'all probably never heard of. Had the Wisdom of Solomon. I bet that's a great book. Sirach, additions to Esther, so parts of Esther that aren't included in our King James version, modern King James. Judah, Prayer of Azariah, Susanna, Bell and the Dragon, and then third and fourth Ezra. These books are great. They call them Esdras as well now. Like if you have a King James Bible with Apocrypha, it'll call this Esdras. And then also First and Second Maccabees. Now, when you look at this, there's more. They got the New Testament too. There's 81 books that were part of the canon in 1611. Some of y'all probably thought, well, we've had 66 books since they canonized the King James Version. No, that's very new. It's the 66 books thing is kind of new. As late as 1611, there was 81 books in the canon. It's almost mind-boggling. But it wasn't until the 1800s that these extra books that we're not used to seeing were removed. The Epistle of Jeremiah, the Prayer of Manasseh, Wisdom of Solomon, these books, First and Second Maccabees, these books are actually in the Jewish Bible, and some of these books are in the Catholic Bible. But in our Protestant Bibles, they took all these out, which is why it's good if you can have a book like a Sefer Bible, because it gives you all of these books. But my point is, these books contain information that we need to know. Some of these books that were taken out, for example, of the Sefer and the Ethiopian Bible, like Enoch and Jubilees, some of these books the Bible quotes from. It even tells you that it's quoting the book of Enoch. The book of Jasher, that's another book that is mentioned in the Bible. It talks about the book of Jasher, but that book is not included in our current canon. So anything that the Bible mentions within the 66 books, I think it makes sense that we should at least look into that book to see what it has to say. So I'm not saying all the books that you find, some of the books are forgeries. So it's something that you have to do a lot of research into, because there's lots of different manuscripts, and many of the manuscripts are obviously forgeries. But that's why the Dead Sea Scrolls find was so important, because when they discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls, they were able to compare different manuscripts and determine which books were good and which books, have things in them that, someone probably just made this up, so they were able to throw things out. But that's something I just learned recently that is interesting. Now back to what I was discussing. What time is it? Oh my gosh, I think I'm gonna have to end because it's getting late. I haven't even gotten to the 364-day thing. If y'all just give me 5 more minutes, I want to show you some scriptures from the book of Enoch and Jubilees. Scriptures that were in the Bible all the way into the 1800s, but taken out. And then we'll end because it's late. Wrong thing. Where did I put it?
Hey Joel, does the Catholics
Yeah.
don't they still use the book of the entire, what's it called, the Maccabean book? Don't they still use all that like today with all those extra books?
They use the books that are
The
in
Maccabean
the
Bible, that's what it's called. Apocryphal Bible, my fault, yeah.
whatever's in
So
the
so in their congregation, they're actually teaching and preaching out of those other books. That's normal.
Yes, they're teaching out of some of the hidden books, but then others they're not teaching out of. And many of those other books, the Jewish people are teaching out of. But the Protestants have the least amount of books. But I'm gonna end with this because this is what Enoch says. I'm not going to get to prove it because we're out of time, but maybe I'll have to do that next week. So the year is divided into 12 Kodesh parts. Remember, Kodesh means year. Rosh Kodesh, new year. So 12 Kodesh parts. This is what the book of Enoch says. 12 parts of the year, as there are 12 parts of the Shamayim, heavens. So the 12 tribes will divide their priesthood into the nations. Each month is measured as a set apart Kodesh portion of the time and days engraved upon the heavens. So this is a calendar that I have from a lady that I'm learning from. Her name is Rachel. Her ministry is called Into All Truth. It's on YouTube. But let's look at this first verse, Enoch 82:7. So that the year is completed in 364 days. Let's see, verse 11. 4 conductors of them, the stars, enter into separate the 4 quarters of the year. After these, 12 conductors of their classes who separate the months and the year, 364, with the leaders of that 1,000 who distinguish between the days. Now, what I want you to realize, the book of Enoch, the Bible quotes, one of the examples is in the book of Jude. It quotes the book of Enoch, not the other way around. The book of Jubilees, chapter 6-30. This is another one of the books that is not in our Protestant Bible. The book of Jubilees 6:30. And all the days of the commandment will be 52 weeks of days, and these will make the entire year complete. So the book of Jubilees in chapter 6 is saying that there should be 52 weeks, not currently what we have now, which is 52 point something weeks in a year, because we have 365 days. So that's not divisible by 7. And these will make the entire year complete. Thus it is engraved and ordained on the heavenly tablets. We can prove this with the heaven. I read one more. The book of Jubilees 6:32-38 states that, and command thou the children of Israel that they observe the years according to this reckoning, 364 days, and these will constitute a complete year, and they will not disturb its time from its days and from its feast, For everything will fall out in them according to their testimony, and they will not leave out any day nor disturb any feast. So the book of Jubilees is saying, as long as you keep 364 days, not 365 days as your year, you're never going to get the feast days messed up. But if you do that, then you're going to mess everything up. You're going to have your days wrong. Days that you think are the Sabbath are not going to be the Sabbath. The feast days, you think you're celebrating the feast days, you're actually going to do it on a profane day, a day that's not holy, is what that means. One more thing. It says, but if they do neglect and do not observe them according to his commandments, they will disturb all their seasons, and the years will be dislodged from this, meaning this order. And they will disturb the seasons, and the years will be dislodged, and they will neglect their ordinances, the ordinances that Yah gave to the children of Israel. And all the children of Israel will forget and will not find the path of the years. What has happened? America, us, for years, we have forgotten. We have forgotten the appointed times. We have not known them, and it's not until now we're coming to our senses, as Deuteronomy chapter 30 says. We're now coming, it's coming to mind. We're recollecting while we're in the land of our captivity. We're remembering. Let's go there real quick. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 1. And it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon you, the blessing and the curses. Remember, we're talking about the curses and the blessings in Deuteronomy 28 and how they apply to us. He says, the blessing and the curses, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind. CSB version says, when you come to your senses, among all the nations where the Lord thy God has driven thee, America. So when you've done that, and shalt return unto Yahuwah thy Elohim, and shall obey his voice, according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thy heart and with all thy soul, then Yahuwah thy Elohim will turn thy captivity. That means he's going to release you from being captive. First, we got to be released from being captive in our mind. First, we have a slave mentality. We were physically slaves, and then Jim Crow, mentally slaves. Now we think Jim Crow is over, but we're still slaves in our mind. Why? Because we haven't returned to Yahuwah, our Elohim. We're following doctrines given by Catholic popes that is just being passed down to pastors, and the pastors are regurgitating what they've heard from the seminaries. And even though many of them believe and they really love Yah, they if we don't really fully return, if we don't study to show ourselves approved, if what the scripture says, if my people, which are called by my name, humble themselves and pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways. We have to seek his face. We have to seek his face, his panim. Remember, panim is the face. It's his mouth open, speaking life to us. He speaks over the water, and when he speaks over the water, life comes forth. That's what we have to do. We have to get in his face so that we can hear him speak to us. When we do this, all of us as a nation, not just individuals, Yah can save us as an individual, but he wants to return the captivity of the entire nation. He says, then he's going to turn thy captivity. He's going to have compassion on us and will turn and gather thee from all the nations where he has scattered his people. That's his plan, and that's his promise, which he's going to do for us. Last thing, I can't explain this because of the time, but 364 is divisible by 7. 364 divided by 7 equals 52 exactly, just like Book of Jubilees was talking about the Book of Enoch. It says you'll have 52 weeks. If you divide 365 by 7, you get 52.142857114, and the numbers just keep going. So it's a perfect week when there's 364 days. Also, 364 is also divisible by 4, which is interesting because we have 4 seasons. And so when you have a 364-day year, each season has 90 days. And there's 4 additional days. Those 4 additional days are what are transitional periods from one season to another, which leaves you with 91, which is divisible by 4, and this 364 is divisible by 7. So everything flows. Not only that, when we celebrate the feast days, remember Passover is on the 14th of Abib, which is divisible by 7. So all of the feast days, all of them, or I don't even like to use that word because it's not feast days, it's a moedim, a appointed time. All of them actually fall on Shabbats. When I say that, I mean the 7th day, when there's a 364-day calendar, all of them. It's amazing. Everything just lines up. So when Yah tells you to keep, for example, the Feast of Tabernacles, and that the Feast of Tabernacles is a Shabbat, it is a Shabbat because it's actually on the 7th day. It falls, it's just perfect. Like everything just works. You don't have to take time off work because it's what you normally do. You normally take that time off. I have so much more, but I'm out of time. So if there's any comments or questions, we can do that, and then we'll get ready to go. Okay.
I just like to thank you, brother. Thank Hashem, Yeshua, for what you giving us is like it's what you call like secret knowledge. That's what I compare it to. You know, it's I compare it to like, and I'm not saying it's, you know, I'm saying it's of the high holiness, but it's comparable to the things that they learn in a lot of those secret organizations, and even in this what they used to call the mystery schools. And I'm just really thankful that you're being used to show us this and teach us this. And I'm just got gratitude because this is rare. This isn't to be taken for granted, or you know, in one or out the other, as you were saying earlier. This is rare ancient secret wisdom that we're getting, and we need to take it to heart. Because my mind's being blown with every new visual that you show. You know, it's just blowing my mind. So I just want to thank you and y'all for that, for listening and being, you know, letting him use your heart and teaching us the way that he has.
Hey man, I appreciate that. I appreciate that because I'll let you know something. I did not want to talk about this today because I feel so inadequate to talk about this. I have, like I told you earlier, I'm just learning. I'm learning this stuff, and I know this goes against everything everybody's learned. But like Jeremiah said, the word is in me. It's like fire shut up in my bones.
In your bones, yeah.
So I got to release it.
Yeah, that's mystery knowledge you just showed us, man. What was, you know, about the days in the week, I mean the days in the year, the 364, and it all falls on Shabbat. We was talking about that yesterday, but that's powerful, man. Like then a lot of the Orthodox Jews know this too. You know, they know all of this.
And yes, I am going to be sending out the recording. I gotta wait for it to process first. I just got the question. So it might take a few hours, but I'm going to send last week's and this week's because I don't know. For some reason I forgot to do last week's and put it on YouTube. But all of this will be on YouTube. But thank you, Caleb, for saying that. I appreciate it. And next week, I'll try to finish it because I know there's probably a bunch of questions, but we're going to address those. Go ahead, Mark.
Hey, if you remember, I was talking to you a couple of weeks ago about the prince that was here from Israel.
Yes.
And I just we don't have the exact date, but I think we're focusing on September time frame where we'll be doing an event at the church where he'll be back and discussing what they're going through right now. And we're also inviting some of the local congressmen and so forth that'll be able to help them. Because as I mentioned to you, they're, trying to put them out. And so I just wanted to give you an up to date info on that. And once we get a final date, I'll let everyone know if they're willing, if there's anybody that's wanting to attend the event.
Yes, I'll share that with everybody. Especially once you get it, the date and the flyer, I'll share that. They're trying to help community in Israel, African American community that moved to Israel and need help because the state of Israel is trying to kick them out. So he's trying to make them more aware, and they're having an event. So I definitely, I'll share that with the people I know. Okay, and I haven't forgot about you, Lisa. After I pray, I'm going to put this link. I'll send the link about the one world thing. Okay, Heavenly Father, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for your word. We thank you for letting us learn history too. Thank you for teaching us so many things, opening our eyes. Thank you for awakening us. We know we're living in the last days, but because you're soon to come, you're awakening your people up. As you said, you're going to restore to Israel a pure language. Father, you're going to return us. You're going to teach. You said you're going to teach us. So we thank you for teaching us even right now by way of your spirit, by way of your word. We ask that you bless everyone tonight and bless the rest of remaining of our weeks. And we thank you for your protection. We thank you for your guidance. In Yeshua's name, amen. All right.
Amen.
Have a good night, everyone.
Amen.
Love you.
Good night, everybody.
Oh, that's right, Lisa. Let me send you this link.
Good night, everybody.
I'll put it in the chat right
Good
now.
night.
I'll put this in the chat right now, Lisa. I was looking for it and I forgot. Let's see, YouTube. One World Religion. Oh, it's in Abu Dhabi. That's where it's at. Actually, I want
You want
you
to
to
just text it to me?
Yeah, I can text it to you.
Yeah, you can just do that. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks again. Have a
You're
good
welcome.
night.
All right.
Bye-bye.